Well, guys, as many predicted, and I actually covered a few months back, the EU has been using the last few months of the UK's EU membership to ravage our coastline, not only by the French letting imported Labour voters float across the channel, but by sending various industrial fishing trawlers to essentially strip the coastline bare right up until now, just 2 weeks and 3 days before the end of the transition period. This type of scummy behaviour is exactly why a no-deal Brexit will be the best outcome, and serious effort will need to go into defending our coastline. 4 Royal Navy ships certainly won't be enough to cover it, let me tell you. Maybe if Boris Johnson and his ministers stopped giving their mates emergency contracts on the sly, they could buy a few more ships to defend our islands, but I guess that would be too much to ask. Anyway, Breitbart picked up on the super trawlers ravaging our coastline and killing things like dolphins in the process, which I am sure you would agree is some shitweasel behaviour right there. But the article headlines, EU super trawlers ravage British waters ahead of Brexit, kill dolphins, porpoises and seals. A surge of industrial super trawlers from the EU are devastating Britain's territorial waters, including marine protected areas, as a no-deal Brexit, which would see the country reclaim its fisheries, looms. Because obviously the EU and these boats are trying to get as much as they can before we kick them out. Providing of course Boris Johnson shows more spine than an octopus has and actually sticks to his guns if no deal is the way it's going, though I still feel a deal is probably more likely. While Britain technically left the European Union at the beginning of 2020, it has for all practical purposes remained a member, minus its voting rights, during a year-long transition period in which the UK-EU trade agreement was supposed to be negotiated. And if it wasn't, we were supposed to leave on no deal. That was supposed to happen in something like July or October. So much for that, obviously. This means the country has remained subject to the bloc's so-called Common Fisheries Policy, or the CFP, which treats national fisheries as a so-called common resource. In other words, allowing them to plunder the UK's fishing resources as they please, because we have some of the best places to fish around Europe. The policy was introduced right before Britain joined the EEC, as the EU then was, in the 1970s, bringing the richest fishing stocks in Europe with it. The CFP has seen tens of thousands of jobs and over half the boats in the British fishing industry destroyed, as Brussels has allocated the lion's share of Britain's fish to the rest of the EU, but with an EU-UK deal looking increasingly remote, in large part because the EU is insisting any deal must include a significant amount of continued control over Britain's fisheries. That ride may be finally coming to an end, and it's not too soon if you ask me. In fact, this should have been a given from day dot. It really pisses me off that UK governments have allowed this to continue for all these years. They didn't need to do a referendum to know that the British people would never support this shit. It goes on, this has apparently prompted a last hurrah by the continent's giant factory ships, with at least 10 of them entering British waters to plunder them for all they are worth in the time remaining before the end of the transition. Between them, these super trawlers have not only caught masses of their target fish species, but tons of fish and marine life that they do not want, including, as I said earlier, marine mammals. These are usually ground down for animal feed or thrown back dead as by-catch, said Thea Taylor, co-lead of the Brighton Dolphin Project. We see a surge in dead dolphins on Sussex beaches when super trawlers are here or during the weeks after. The French, who have pushed harder than anyone for control over Britain's fisheries to be included in any Brexit deal, fear that the largely Dutch-owned super trawlers will descend on their waters if Boris Johnson follows through on his promise to follow through on a no-deal break with the EU if a negotiated settlement cannot be agreed, which, like I said, is unlikely at the moment. They will probably make a deal, but hopefully they don't. And I actually might make a separate video on the French coast once we leave on no deal, if of course we do, because it could descend into a complete shit show, let me tell you. But I have got to say, it should have been on the EU to stop these super trawlers coming up and taking the piss out of British waters. You know, whatever happened to quotas? Oh yeah, these big fucking ships, they don't have them, do they? Or not one that would make a difference to the amount they catch. But surely there's got to be something wrong with just indiscriminately killing dolphins and things like that, especially when they have no value or you just plan to throw them back dead. But I guess in the desperation to take as much as they can from the UK while they can, they don't give a fuck about any of that.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.